the first 6 years we're in the village, we didn't have an airplane. And the only way to get there was with an aircraft. From the capital city, Port Moresby, to Cotiranga, you have 5 hours on the road, and then the end of the road, it's still another 27 miles to the village. And that's a 3-day walk. There's just something about when you got dropped off and you watch the plane fly away.
Welcome to the Castleview Baptist Church podcast. We are so excited to have you back again. And I am joined again by my wife, Debbie. Good to have you back again.
Good to be here.
And we have a very special couple this week. We had missions conference at the church, and we had an amazing missions conference. Matter of fact, I've not told them this yet, and you are hearing this news for the very first time. Our church today committed $125,000 to worldwide missions for the next 12 months. And we are so thrilled about that. And so we had great missionaries.
You're getting a raise.
We had, you heard it here first. We had great missionaries. Bill and Amy Fennell were here. They are working on getting the scriptures to people that don't have the scripture in their language. G.S. Nair was here and just did an amazing job.
He was amazing. Our first time to meet him. Have y'all met him before?
That was our first time.
Mine too. I'm like, he's a legend.
Yeah.
He was amazing.
Yeah. To India has been a part of planting over 5,000 churches, which is pretty unbelievable.
In ministry, 52
years.
Something like that.
And then we had also John and Dina Williams planting a church in North Carolina.
Very dear friends.
So let me ask you all, what was your favorite part? I'll put you on the spot first, hon. What was your favorite part?
My favorite part?
About missions conference this week?
Really? Well, Matt and Becky, first of all, are dear friends. And I feel like every time that we get together, it's like we just pick up where we left off.
Yeah.
There's never enough time. I truly enjoyed the fellowship of this missions conference. I felt like we were all clicking. I felt like maybe it's because everybody that was here this time was friends, very good friends, not just friends, but we just get each other. We've all been through valleys and mountaintops and all those kind of things. We prayed for each other, but especially with Matt and Becky, I just love them because they've been in our home multiple times. Our kids kind of have been around each other a lot. Our kid, they have 2 girls, we have 2 boys, for those that you don't know. And their girls are I just love them. They're just part of our girls too. And they would always come up with the most creative games. They'd make up games. They'd be in the woods cutting things down. We went whitewater rafting together as families. Just enjoyable things. And I feel Becky just always, when we would do stuff, I'd cook a lot at the house. Then, we did a lot of things in my basement, and she'd just jump in and just chip right in and help me, and we would just chat or whatever, and just love you guys.
So I feel like we're in the middle of a presidential debate right now.
Okay.
You have not answered my question.
What was your question?
I grew up in a middle-class family.
What was your favorite part? Is that your favorite part?
Yes, the fellowship was
hanging out with them.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. That was a long way of saying hanging out with Matt and Becky this week.
All the missionaries.
Yeah, all the missionaries.
Yeah,
all
I just felt like it was a really good missions conference. The fellowship,
and it really was. Matt, what was your favorite part?
Meals in people's homes.
Oh,
That was really special. We don't get to do that everywhere, and that was just really special. Some of these families really put on nice bread, and I got to admit, it seemed like every time we were rushed. We got to go into the next thing afterwards. But every one of the meals was just special.
Good.
And so, thanks for putting that together.
Yeah, Becky, did you have a favorite part?
I think our host family, Shelley and Wiley, just getting to spend time with
them.
them. It's like in a downtime.
Yes.
And that was really nice. It was very comforting to be in their home.
Yeah, fantastic people. Yeah, very good.
And the rooftop. Their rooftop
Yes.
is really,
nice
really
special touch.
So
top notch. Yeah.
I kind of joked this week that if you were to look up missionary in the dictionary, there may be a picture of Matt and Becky Allen, right? Missionaries to Papua New Guinea, the quintessential missionaries. Yeah. I mean, you all went to Cotiranga, Papua New Guinea, and at the very beginning, it was in the bush. I mean, you were deep out of places that people could get to. You're reaching tribes that most people aren't going to ever be able to see.
Sure.
And you have pictures with the bones and noses kind of situations.
That's the way they were. Yeah.
You were flying airplanes into that area and supplies.
One at a time.
One at a time here. And airplane into that area.
Another reason why Matt is cool, because he flies airplanes.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of reasons. But you guys would be missionaries that I think people would assume a lot of missionaries look like. What was it? You could have been successful in a lot of things here in the States. Sure. You've got a lot of gifts. They built their own house. He just on YouTube, watching YouTube clips. What was it that drew the two of you to mission work?
You want to add anything here, or you want me to go first?
I can. So actually, when I was in the third grade, I actually went to a church camp with some friends of mine. Yeah. And that was really my first ever interaction with missionaries. And I thought, that's really cool. I want to do that. I wasn't even saved at the time, but it was cool that they were living someplace else. So then at 13, I was saved. And then at 17, actually, his dad was preaching missions conference at my church. And at that time, I was just like, this is what I want to do. This is what the Lord wants me to do. I don't know where it's going to be, and I don't know who it's going to be with, but this is what I know what the Lord wants me to do.
So his dad was preaching missions conference.
Yes.
You all grew up in the same church?
No,
different
2 hours
churches,
away from each other.
Is that right? Yeah. So tell us about that. Is that how you all got together?
Yeah, that's how we met each other.
That's how we met.
That's
I
how
didn't
you
like him.
You didn't like Matt?
I remember the story. Yeah.
Okay.
I was head over heels.
He was head over heels.
First time we met, we were 13.
Here am I, Lord, send me.
That's right. I'll take that one.
Did you travel with your dad then?
I did.
Is that you were together?
Yeah.
And
Your parents were a big part of mission work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
still are.
yeah,
And
and
still
so
are. Yeah.
so dad was an assistant in the church, a Bible school teacher or a Bible teacher in the school. We had a Christian school there in Louisville, and so all growing up, we were around ministry, right?
Yeah.
And then our founding pastor passed away. He actually passed away on the day that he was supposed to do our wedding. The day of our wedding, he passed away.
I forgot that.
Yeah, and then of course the church went through pastoral search for a while, and eventually Dad became the pastor, and he was a big part of in my life.
Yeah.
There was, and I would say his draw towards missions came from our founding pastor. So our founding pastor was always having missionaries into the church, and my dad was always saying, hey, I want them to stay at our house. And a lot of times that meant that we 4 boys got to sleep on the couch while the visiting missionary got to sleep on our bunk bed.
Right.
Our boys are familiar with that.
Right?
Did that shape you then? That
very much.
began just hearing, rubbing shoulders with?
And I remember probably the most impactful missionary, and I don't even know if he's still alive, a guy named Wilford Neese. He had grown up in Venezuela among the Yanomami Indians, and they were like an untouched tribe in Venezuela. And so his dad, Cecil Neese, was there for, I don't know, 60 years or something like that. Wilford had grown up as a missionary kid. And I just remember him telling us stories over lunch about, being in a canoe and a jaguar jumps out of a tree into the canoe. And I was like, that's the most awesome life ever,
I want to do that.
And I think God was using that to plant seeds in my mind.
Sure.
That type of mission still needs to be done. And so that really bore long-term fruit. So, yeah.
Did you have moments that as you got older, Bible college, you're together now, you're getting ready to get married. Do you have moments you wanted to stay, or did you always you were attracted to that kind of
so
life?
when I started in my aviation training when I was still in high school, and I found that I was gifted in that, and I progressed very quickly in aviation. And I was, and I don't say this to boast, I was on the fast track to commercial aviation, and had opportunities that were just opening up. My senior year in high school, the opportunity to go corporate.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming up on my commercial license. I had my private pilot's license, my instrument rating. I was working on my commercial, and offers, don't go to college. I mean, a guy comes, don't go to college. I'm going to give you a job.
Wow.
Go fly my jet, At 18, who gives a 18-year-old these opportunities,
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my initial thoughts. But I think was at the same missions conference that the Lord worked in your heart. And I don't even think we weren't even sitting together. I just remember the Lord doing a work in my heart. And that, I remember that invitation. I actually physically walked down the aisle and pulled my pilot's license out of my wallet, laid it on the altar. And Lord, if you want me to do something with aviation, then so be it.
Oh, wow.
But if you want me to go be a missionary and never touch an airplane, I'm willing to do whatever you want.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool because when we got to the field the first 6 years, I didn't do anything with aviation. And then the Lord opened the door, and I got to spend the next 10 years flying a Cessna 206 in some really cool places. And I did 2,000 flights in Papua New Guinea, carrying sick patients and medicine and medevacs and carrying mothers in labor and snake bite patients and
Wow,
all
very
sorts
needed.
of things. So it was a
Especially
huge
there.
need. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
huge need. And so Psalm 37:4, Psalm 34:7. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and He'll give you the desires of your heart. And I got to see that happen. I've been able to see that happen in my life.
So you would have said you desired that. God gave you that desire, both of you, called to missions. I remember when we got ready to go, not international, but we got ready to leave the South and come out here to Castle Rock. I remember very vividly Debbie having a conversation, sitting down. I can still picture them sitting on the couch, and she is telling her mom that we're going to be moving across the country and take her two grandkids. And that was an emotional time, and that was international. You can still hop on a flight pretty easily here. I have a feeling that because of what your dad was doing, that he was okay with that, but I'd love to know his reaction. And then Becky, I'd love to know the reaction of your family too. So I'm guessing your dad, he's preaching missions conferences. He's okay with that.
Yeah, Dad's like, all right, yes, wonderful.
He's been preparing you for this moment.
Yeah.
He's like,
okay.
oh, good, another missions opportunity. I can go and visit them on the mission field.
And then, of course, mom and dad come and help you on the field.
Yeah, 5 years after we went. So we went in 2003, and Mom and Dad came in 2008 and joined us there in the work.
Yeah.
And so, Mom and Dad it seems like, have loved the work from before they went.
Sure.
And so, so from my side,
Yeah.
no issues at all.
Yeah. Becky, what about yours?
My side had some issues.
Okay.
So my mom has always been faithful at taking my sister and I to church when we were growing up. My dad has not. My dad very rarely was at church when I was a kid. So for us to tell him that he was for sure that his grandkids were going to get cooked in a stew pot and eaten. He begged us not to go. Wow. He even said, you can move back in with me. You can just walk away, let Matt go. We'll take you and the kids here.
Wow. But that's the kind of area you were going. I mean, if it's gonna be
primitive,
it's primitive.
Yeah.
If something like that were to happen,
Sure.
That's the kind of area he wasn't. It's not hyperbole for him to say that, right?
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I'll interject there because I love Papua New Guinea, and I want to speak up for Papua New Guinea because there's stereotypes, right?
Yeah.
And it's been a long time. It's been a long time since people have been killed and eaten. That's something that's generations ago, and so. But that stereotype still lives, right?
Yeah.
And so for Grandpa to be concerned,
In his mind, that's what he's
it's
seeing.
a valid concern for him, right?
Sure.
And so both sides of it, now we see both sides, and we kind of go, and probably we shouldn't have done it, but our first couple of months we were there, we got a big stew pot and we
Put our
put
kids in
Ariel
it.
in it and took a
no.
picture.
I took a picture.
Probably shouldn't have done that, but
Did you really do that?
We
we
really
just did it as a joke and sent it
Right,
back to him.
right.
He didn't take it too well.
But also for my parents' benefit, as
Right.
soon as we would come back to the States,
Yeah.
within a week we would take our kids to the pediatrician so that the
Yes.
pediatrician could say they're healthy,
They're okay.
they're doing well, they're growing like they should,
That was smart.
Yeah.
and then my parents could have a little more peace about
Yeah,
it.
peace about it.
As the girls got older, it was easier for my parents to see us leave.
And I'm sure it was easier because we know the girls and they fell in love
Oh,
with
my
Papua New
goodness.
Guinea.
Sure.
They when they would be here, their heart was there.
Right.
And I was out there for a youth camp a number of years ago, and the heart that they had for the kids and the way that they led those kids, talked about Jesus and just loved what they were doing, said a lot about them
tough.
and both
They're
of
so
you.
tough.
Yeah, no
They're
question.
both tough. Yeah.
So you get there and you're going to a challenging, primitive area that you're talking about. You don't have all of the running water. I wouldn't imagine
Well, it rained.
all of the the rain running water.
It was
okay.
running in the road.
You don't have that. You don't have the electricity. You don't
Right.
have the things that
Right.
we're so used to.
Right.
What was the biggest culture shock difference about being on the field when you first got there?
I think the isolation.
Yeah.
There's something about, now this is, remember the first 6 years we're in the village, we didn't have an airplane. And the only way to get there was with an aircraft. Because from the capital city, Port Moresby, to Cotiranga, you have 5 hours on the road, and then the end of the road, it's still another 27 miles to the village. And that's a 3-day walk. I've walked it one time. I'll never do that again.
Wow.
The older I get, the less the chance anyway. But it was a 15-minute flight to do that last 27 miles. And there's just something about when you got dropped off and you watched the plane fly away. And especially in those early days, we didn't have sat phone, cell signal. Of course, internet was still in its infancy days anyway. But there was just no contact to the outside world. And so you kind of watch as there goes the last contact, right? So I think that was the most difficult.
That would be hard.
And we would stay in the village for 3 months, and then we would go out to town for a week, get groceries, supplies, whatever we needed for the next 3 months, and we'd go back out. And we would be in the village for 3 months at a time. And I remember being in the village during that time and kind of counting down, sadly.
Right.
But it's just, like you would say, I'm counting down looking forward to vacation.
Sure.
Right.
Counting down until I can go and check my email, right? And so I think that was probably the most difficult part of.
Yeah. Would you say the
Especially those
same,
early days.
Becky? Isolation?
Yeah. And then to watch that plane note, and especially in the early days, because he was the only one that I really could communicate with.
So you're watching him fly away?
No, watching the pilot fly away and knowing that
plane.
really the only person I can talk to is him.
Is Matt.
Because we didn't have those close relationships with the nationals there yet.
You remember that moment? That's got to be a core memory, right? The moment that pilot flies away for you
yeah.
guys?
Yeah.
How old are the girls at this time?
Well, when we first got to the field, 3 and 18 months.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it like having an 18-month-year-old there?
Well, she was clumsy, so she fell in every
She was in the mud all the
every
time.
single thing that she could fall. I don't know if she did it on purpose. Now that I know her personality, she might have been doing this on purpose at 18 months old, but constantly.
Shout out to you, Hannah.
That's right.
I got to tell a funny story about Hannah, our first night in the village.
Oh, yeah.
First
She's gonna
night in the
love
village.
this.
So she had this little pink dress on
Yeah.
and a diaper, right?
Right.
And all of the kids in the village, it was raining, cats and dogs, it was raining. And all of the kids in the village were so excited. There's this little white kid, these two little white kids that are there. Ariel would, and this was Ariel's personality. Ariel stayed with mom. And Hannah would just go and be with her friends. And the first time Hannah fell in the mud, she was just like this silly dress. And she pulled it right off and ran back and handed it to Becky and was like,
All of the other kids were running around.
all
with
the other
their
kids are
clothes on,
naked,
so
you know?
she must need
And
to
so
do
she's
that
like, I'm one of you.
It did not matter how many times I put that dress back on her, she would not leave it on.
That's hilarious.
Did you ever have a moment in those early days that you doubted your decision?
Certainly. So we arrived November of 2003, and in October 2005, I journaled about this. And sorry,
Yeah.
I'm so glad I didn't quit.
Yeah.
I journaled at length about it because it was a very tough time in ministry. We had a young couple that was very close to us. We had really started the ministry, local family, man and his wife. They had a little boy, baby, and she had just passed away from typhoid. Sudden, she was so young. None of us knew what the illness was. And by the time she finally got treatment, it was too late. And so here was a month later, and I'm just, what am I doing? Am I making any difference?
Yeah.
And so at that point, and this is kind of the cool part of it, that was October 2005. And I remember writing this out, Lord, I pray for one of two things. Send somebody to come and help me because I feel like I'm just wasting my time here. Or give me a green light to go, and I'll go do missionary work with somebody else somewhere else. And at that time, kind of in the back of my mind was, I'll just go be a pilot and I'll fly for somebody. There's mission organizations I could join in and I could just be a help to them. But the big thing that for me was, if I move away, I'm going to leave a big hole here. There's no trained pastors. There's no missionaries. I'm just going to leave a hole, and there will be nothing left. And what would I have done for these last couple of years? And it was by God's grace, 2 months later, that my dad came and visited, and then
They stayed.
they stayed.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your mom was a nurse, right?
Yeah, Mom was a nurse, and
that's very
she,
needed.
oh yeah, it would have made a lot of difference a few months
That's right.
earlier.
Can you speak to longevity in ministry?
Yeah, I cannot say enough about it.
Yeah, there's a compounding effect.
That little boy, he was 6 months old when his mom passed away. He's 19 now, and he lives on the campus with us in Port Moresby. And I've watched him go through seasons in his life as he's gone through his teen years. And Caleb is an up and coming, promising young man. He's one of our ushers in the church. He's doing his 11th grade. He's a little bit behind in schooling from what we would be here, but he's doing his 11th grade right now. I'm very proud of him. Sunday, a week ago. Yeah, a week ago we were there. Next Sunday I'll be back. So last Sunday, before the service started, there's a group of about maybe 12 of
It
us.
keeps growing.
It's a growing group. A group of about 12 of us I meet with young men before the service, and we pray together. And Caleb was the guy next to me last week. And so that longevity, Braxton was my pastoral intern last year. Braxton was 2 years old when we moved to Coridanga. He was a kid in Coridanga. Went
In
through
my Sunday school class.
Becky's Sunday school class.
Isn't that special?
And now he's gone through pastoral internship, wants to be a pastor. He actually
Bible in our Christian school.
Yeah, and he wants to be a missionary pilot. And so it's just the longevity. You don't get that. And I'm sorry to say this. I love short-term missions trips, but short-term missions trips, you don't get that, right? And even short-term missions, 2 years, you're not going to see that. And so I've been very thankful for what God's given us in being able to minister with the same people over a good portion of their lives and half of mine.
Yeah.
So
Somebody said you overestimate what can be done in a short amount of time, 1 or 2 years, but you underestimate what can be done over 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And I think sometimes people are waiting to see, are they here? You know, I think even in a church planning situation, I think we've gone through that 16
Yes,
years here
absolutely.
now. I think there's a lot of people that are they going to be around and are they going to be here? And you just start developing relationships, and that makes a difference. When you were struggling, when you're journaling that, right, and you're saying, Lord, I don't know if we're going to be able to stay here or not. What kept you there?
Well, I knew that the Lord had brought us to that point. So there have been 2 points in my life that I've had this happen, where I didn't know what God wanted me to do next. I kind of had an idea, and I thought, I'm supposed to go this direction, but I don't know for certain. And so I just fasted and prayed over it. And I don't want to get mystical about this, but both times fasted for 7 days. And on the 7th day, just the greatest peace flooded my soul. And I just knew this is what I'm supposed to do. And maybe I don't know all the details of how I'm going to get there and what it's going to look like. And the first of those 2 was going into Coridanga. And so I had this, I know that God wanted me to be here. And I know that it's just me frustrated. I could even say maybe my carnal flesh is just tired of this. And so maybe that's what's causing me to want to move on to greener pastures. But it was me knowing that the Lord has brought me to this. And so today, or this season's disappointments, and then the back end of it, what I already mentioned, was if I leave, there's going to be a hole here. And I didn't want to leave a hole. I felt like that would be so counterproductive.
If you had to make a major decision now, you've made some. Let's say you're a church member, Castleview Baptist Church, and you're talking to somebody here that's making a major decision. What are some of the things that you've said, this has helped me make decisions in the past?
Okay, so Galatians 5 walk in the Spirit and you will not fulfill the lust of the flesh.
Ooh, that's good.
And so if I'm walking in this, that's got to be primary, right? So this is
Right.
foundational.
Yeah.
So I've got to be walking in the Spirit, and that's going to be a daily thing. Where am I spending time in the Word? Because if I'm wanting to know God's will for me for the big picture, I better be taking care of His will for me in the small picture.
Yeah.
And so foundationally, I want to make sure that I'm walking in the Spirit, right? Okay. Then second to that, then I'm going to start looking for godly counsel. And this sounds a little self-serving, but they've got a pastor that may be able to look at this situation a little bit wider lens. And maybe you wouldn't be locked down on the nitty-gritty details of life that they're facing, but you might be able to see things that they wouldn't have originally looked at. And then I would say definitely spending the time in prayer and fasting. I mentioned twice. Both of those were major life moves. And I wanted to know, God, is this what you want for me?
Yeah.
And I think I probably would have come to the same answer on both of them and would have eaten for 7 days. But I got to say, there's nothing like the peace of God that passes all understanding.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yes. There's a lot to be said about that. We've had moments out here that we feel like, Lord, is this what you want us to do? Those early days, you know, you've got some people
Same
upset.
thing like you. That's right. Some people are upset. Am I doing any good?
Yeah.
Am I doing any
right,
good?
right. And you've got to have something you can look back on and say, no, I know that God I
God brought me
remember
to
that,
this.
we had that moment that we really prayed this thing through, we believed. And now if that was a season and he moves and he changes us, well, certainly we'll change. We'll walk in the Spirit, as you said a minute ago. But we had to rely on that call, and God gave us a clear call that we're able to say, you know what, that's what God said then. He hasn't changed that,
Right.
And so let's keep on moving forward. And as you we're so glad that we did too. What does a typical day on the mission field look like? Because I don't know if that looks like it is. You're in Port Moresby now.
Right.
Does that look a lot like it would here? Does it look different? What's a typical day for you? You've got a Christian school, and you've got a church ministry and a number of other things.
And start with the morning. The
So
alarm
we get
goes
up in the
off.
morning, the alarm goes off, he goes and makes coffee, and we do our devotions together. So we're reading through the same passages so that we can sit and talk about it. And then we go for a walk. We have to walk down to the school building and turn all the air conditions on, just prepare. This is about 6 a.m. Back to the house, get ready for school, get ready for work. 7:15, we're out the door, and we're just with people. At 7:35, I meet with all my teaching staff, prayer request time, pray, any announcements for the school of the day. And at 7:50, those students start walking in the door, and I'm busy all day after that.
I bet you are.
And there's not really a typical day,
Yeah,
depends on who needs to be in the office, and he's in his office, and sometimes we see each other throughout the day, and sometimes we don't. And then school finishes at 3:30, but we don't leave at 3:30. We leave whenever we're done. I also try to go around and I want to see how my teachers did. They've been in a classroom all day with children all day, so just go check up on them, and then home, and then it depends on what night of the week it is, because if it's Wednesday night, we have church. We do counseling with people on some nights.
And Monday nights and Tuesday nights, we're both doing school. So I'm working on my DMin.
I didn't know.
And Lord willing, I'll be finished in May, and we'll be able to say thank you. So Monday nights and Tuesday nights typically are our times to work on classwork. Of course, Wednesday night services.
Thursday night, I go get groceries, and
That's right.
that is an ordeal in Papua New Guinea.
Yeah, we try to take Friday evenings to just together, just the two of us, and Saturday mornings we block that off. I tell the staff, if anybody wants to see me, if it's not an emergency, let them know that I'm in a meeting. They don't have to know that the meeting is with my wife.
That's right. It's an appointment. It's on the calendar.
It's on the calendar.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a favorite meeting.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot like here, maybe
It
some
is
different
very-
unique challenges, obviously,
Right.
but a lot like here. Would you change anything about going to the mission field?
No, I've been very thankful for I think if I tried to be a missionary pastor in Port Moresby, in the capital city, without having had that first 11 years in the village, I don't think I would have understood Papua New Guinea. And I think that because we had that time in the village living in a grass hut, at one point we did that for a year, lived in a grass hut. And having lived like they do in the village, having lived that way and having gone through the difficulties of the isolation of being in a very remote place, I think that has endeared and opened up opportunities to be able to speak. And I plan on being there for the rest of my life, if the Lord would allow. But I don't think I'll never be fully 100% Papua New Guinean all the way through to my core, just because the first 20 years of my life I grew up in a city, right? But I think that first portion of ministry set us up for the one we're in currently, and we plan on being in this ministry for the rest of our lives, if the Lord will allow. Yeah,
I love it.
Me too.
What are you the most thankful for, maybe the most proud of, that God's allowed you to be able to do since you've been on the mission field?
I'm thankful that our girls still love the Lord, even though they did not get to grow up in America,
Right.
Yeah.
and that they care, and that it wasn't just this is mom and dad's ministry,
Right.
but they even ministered there, and we see them getting involved in their churches here. So that could be a little scary because
Yes.
a lot of people say, I can't believe you're taking your kids over there. Well, my kids love the fact that they grew up in Papua New Guinea. They still claim that they're Papua New Guineans. They are not.
Yeah, each of them claimed Papua New Guinea as their home country when they went to college.
Yeah.
So when Ariel's graduation thing is Ariel Allen, Papua New Guinea.
I love that.
yeah.
And they should.
Yeah.
They should.
Yeah. Anything ministry related that you're...
I'm thrilled to see the churches that have been started, the pastors that have been trained, the aviation side. I'm thankful. 2,000 flights, and they were in very remote, difficult places. And that area that we flew in, there's not such a great history of longevity there.
Sure.
And I'm thankful for those guys that invested in me, in my training, and several guys that helped me with my training in Papua New Guinea, that were very intentional about speaking some truth into my life, that this isn't don't just jump in it like it's a pickup truck and take off, and so I look back on it and I'm so thankful for the fact that I got to do that, but then I get to continue to do other ministry things after that season. So yeah.
Becky, do you ever have any moments? You both strike me as very steadfast, stable people.
Me too.
Not overly emotional.
Yep.
But you've got to have some days, right, that you kind of go, you know what? It might be easier somewhere else. Do you have those moments, and what do you do when you've got those moments?
Go to the Lord. But those moments, they usually come if something's happening with my kids. When Ariel left for college, she's mom's girl anyway. She's very shy. She's very quiet. So when she calls and crying because she doesn't feel like she has any friends, I would rather just get on a plane and just go and be there with her. But in the end, I have to leave her in the hands of the Lord. And then thankfully, the Lord doesn't allow us to go through those seasons at the same time. So then I can depend on Him, and He can depend on me for that.
Yeah. I think we've experienced that too.
We do too.
You know.
I'm thankful we don't go through the same time. It would not be good for each other.
Right. No, but we're a little different though.
Typically, he's mostly positive. Like, he's never down. He's just always, very driven, very positive. Biggest cheerleader. Yeah. Yeah.
You guys have done such an amazing job. Thank you for sitting down with us here tonight. Just have a little conversation.
Yeah.
A lot of our people don't know or haven't known maybe what missions looks like, or maybe there's a few things they didn't know about. You mentioned isolation at the very beginning. So as we kind of wrap up this conversation, how would a church like Castleview Baptist Church, or any church member, what is it that a church could do to encourage, to meet needs in your lives, or just kind of missionaries in general? How can we as a church and church members support what you're doing there?
I would say probably, and this was one of those things. You said, what was your favorite thing? I said the food was, but actually this kind of opens up an idea here. So I was very impressed with how many of the people in the Berean class came to me and asked me questions that were pointed questions, informed questions that came from prayer letters.
Yeah.
Like I had written something in a prayer letter, and then here it is months later, and they would ask about that. It told me that they were praying for us, and that they were praying for us specifically based on what we had put out, right?
Right.
And I mean, I sent out the prayer letter through MailChimp, 52% click rate, so that means 48% of the people that got my prayer letter hit delete.
It's encouraging. Thanks a lot.
Right. But I'm very thankful for, and by the way, I can see which ones it is.
Nice.
I don't drill, by the way. I don't drill. Except for the churches that say, we didn't get your prayer letter. And I go back to, yeah, you did.
Yeah,
It's
you
right
did.
here.
That's right. Somebody did.
Yeah. Somebody opened it.
That's right.
But no, in all seriousness, I think one of the most encouraging things for us is when somebody reads the prayer letter, prays for us, and then lets us know.
Yeah.
There's a handful of churches that do that, and it's not a thing that is regular. And then suddenly we'll get somebody that reaches out and says, "Hey, I've been praying about this topic. Is there any update on it?" And that's very encouraging. So
I want you to know, Larry Hedquist, he reads those, and then he takes a synopsis.
Yeah.
Once
Wow.
a month, he will take all of our missionaries, and he'll take a synopsis and write it all out, and then he sends it to the church. And so the Bereans, that's what they're getting, and the rest of the church members are getting that too.
Yeah.
It's interesting, after I preach a sermon, people that say, "Oh, good sermon," well, thank you, I appreciate that. But the ones that kind of drill down on that and say, I really appreciated what you said about this, or that this is the part that it means a little bit more. It's not just kind of someone saying something, but there's something a little more to it.
Yeah.
Becky, anything that you would encourage somebody, a way to encourage missionaries on the field?
Connect with them if you can. I know that not all missionaries can have social media and contact, but just so that we know that it's not just I put my money in the offering plate and there I've checked missions off my list for the month or whatever, but to get to know who we are and just connect with us as people.
As real people.
That's right.
Yeah. Because I think sometimes missionaries are seen as not real people.
Yes.
I think that too, and I also think some people are like, they're probably so busy I don't want to bother them, So it's good that you say that, because I'm like, they probably get so much mail and emails and
Do you get so much mail and emails? Not so much.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But if you
Junk
text,
mail.
we're not going
Junk
to text
mail.
you back right away.
Don't we all?
Right.
Sure.
You
Just
can't-
like ministry here, though, right?
Well,
I mean,
but
not
it's
everybody.
also the other time of the day.
Sure.
You're texting us in the middle of the night for us.
That's
Yes,
right.
that's
That's
true.
right. You wake up to texts, and then
Yes.
you send while we're sleeping. Probably.
That's right.
Yeah. You guys are fascinating. Thank you so much for being willing to sit down with us. Our church really believes that missionaries are heroes and people that we ought to look up to, and just your steadfastness, your faithfulness, the work that you guys have done really inspires us to want to reach our community for the Lord Jesus too. I say this every now and then to our church. It'd be so hypocritical for us to send you a little money and expect you to go out and do the job, right?
Yeah.
And then we check
Yeah.
up on you. Hey, are you doing the? Do we have good mission? Are they telling people
this
about
worth it?
Jesus? And then we don't do that.
Right.
That'd be so hypocritical. And so thank you for being one of those missionaries that's doing the job. We've supported you guys for 10 years now.
Yeah.
And we really believe that support many times over has been so valuable and so worth it. So thank you for letting us be a
Yes,
part
thank you.
of your lives and your ministry. And thanks for being with our church this weekend. I really do believe a lot of that giving was just simply we got to know them. They have an authentic walk with Jesus, and they enjoyed getting to know you all this weekend. So
Thank you.
So we really appreciate you
We
all being
truly
here
love
this
you
weekend.
guys so
Thank
much.
you.
We
And
really
we
do.
love those girls. They're
Thank you.
amazing.
Yeah.
And you really, both of you are just true leaders. You are, Matt and Becky. You guys have just been so faithful. Thank you for not quitting.
Thank you.
You mean a lot to us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amen. Yeah.
Thanks.
Castleview, thank you for tuning in again for this. Let me encourage you, if you didn't have a chance this week to give your faith promise commitment card, we're going to have another opportunity this Sunday. And I believe that $125,000 that was promised this past weekend is going to grow quite a bit from there as well. And let me just encourage you, when we send out these mission prayer letters, we give you opportunities to be able to get in touch with our missionaries and ways to email them. And you've heard just kind of an authentic story of real people on the mission field that could use your encouragement. And so thank you for tuning in again, and thank you for being a part of reaching the world for the Lord Jesus Christ.